Welcome. So good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us on today's workshop. We're going to get started in just a minute. So let me hit the record button if I haven't already. Nick, are we already recording? All right. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us on today's session. Today's going to be all about how to leverage paid advertising in your online marketing strategy for your plumbing, HVAC, home service business. Thanks for investing your valuable time to be on here today. We have spent a lot of time and energy bringing you some great case studies, some great best practices, some of the latest data and benchmarks in terms of what the average cost per lead is looking like in paid search today. And so if you could have your webcams on, let's try to make this as interactive as possible, because the whole point of coming on live is so that we can interact with you. You can ask your questions. We can get them answered as we go. So let me know in the chat if you're ready. Just type ready into the chat. That'll be my indication that you're ready to hit the ground running on today's session. And I'm happy to say I'm being joined by Mike Carney, our director of paid search. And so he's going to be sharing from his perspective, actually in the trenches, now having run hundreds of these types of campaigns. Mike, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. Looking forward to sharing.
So high level, do you know approximately how many campaigns, approximately how much ad spend for plumbing, HVAC, home service companies we're running these days?
Right now, we're doing like 500,000 a month.
So lots of data. And I don't want this to feel like I'm just sharing from my infinite wisdom, but I want to bring you real people in the company that are hands-on with these campaigns that can show you exactly what's working, where we're seeing a lot of mistakes happen when we take over campaigns. Mike, thanks for being here, man. Really looking forward to it. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Type yes in the chat if you're able to see my screen here, just to confirm everything's coming in correctly. We put together a great, thorough workbook for today's session that's going to walk you through how to think through your ads campaign, how to think through your goal setting, and how to fix some of the big issues that we're seeing. So if you want to grab that, we just dropped it into the chat for you. It's at plumbersco.net/PPC workbook. I'm going to open it up real quick just so you can get eyes on it and kind of know what it is and what you should be looking at when you open this. It's a Google Doc. I found that's the easiest way to interact with this kind of content. I see a bunch of you guys in there now. We walk you through how to set up your overall strategy. And then more importantly, when it comes to paid ads, how do we dial in the local service ads? How do we dial in the Google Ads setup? What are the biggest mistakes that you're probably making today? And then of course, how to checklist and correct those. So hopefully that's of value and kind of worth attending just from that particular asset in and of itself. We will be going back to that and kind of referencing it as we go. Again, it's at plumbersco.net/PPC-workbook. All right. So here's what we're going to cover on today's session. We're going to be talking about why paid marketing is the key to unlimited scalability in terms of the lead flow for your plumbing, HVAC, home service business, and why you don't want to just do organic, or you don't want to just do brand advertising, but why paid advertising should be part of that overall growth process. We're going to talk about the paid strategies that are working best in today's market. And it's not just Google Ads, right? We want to have a well-rounded paid search strategy. And then what I think is going to be the most valuable and the most useful is we're going to show you live examples of real campaigns getting between a 5 and 15 times ROI. Michael and the team really did some deep research, and we're going to be able to show you these are the actual companies. This is actually how much they're spending, where those monies went, and what the true return on investment is in the back end. I know I love seeing real data behind training versus just, hey, here's how we think you should do it. And then we're going to walk you through how to set up your campaigns for maximum ROI and the lowest cost per lead possible. That's really what we have planned. If that sounds good, drop me a yes in the chat. And we do want to make this interactive. So if you've got your webcam on, if you're in a place where you want to ask questions, feel free to drop that into the chat. We will be watching those questions as they come in. Logan and Brad, thank you for commenting in. For those of you that don't know who I am and why you should listen, I'm the author of How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right for plumbing, HVAC, home service companies. We are actively involved now, going on 15 years in PHCC, QSC, Nexstar, Service Roundtable, and all of the big industry groups and associations. But I'd say more important than any of that stuff is that over the last decade and a half, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of plumbing, HVAC, home service companies in some of the most competitive markets and at some of the outskirt markets, and seen many of them go from obscurity online to the point where they're now the dominant player in their market. I'm talking about companies generating hundreds, in some cases, thousands of leads every month directly via the internet. Many of our companies have seen millions of dollars in tracked revenue growth by dialing in their online marketing strategy. To our chagrin, probably, I think at last count, 27 of the companies we've worked with over the last decade have been acquired by public equity and rolled into other things. And so what I'm sharing with you today isn't based on theory, it's not based on hype, it's based on real world experience working with companies just like yours. This is what we do. At Plumbing and HVAC SEO, we're on a mission to triple the sales of 1,000 plumbing, HVAC, and home service companies, setting up the websites, doing the SEO, doing the paid search. And so we love sharing this information, and we'd also love the opportunity to connect with you. If you'd like for us to look at your internet marketing strategy as a whole, or even just dive into your specific paid search campaign or your LSA campaign, you can schedule a time complimentary by going to plumberseo.net/schedule. Nick just dropped the link to that. Before we get into the nitty gritty and the tactics behind paid search, I want to make sure we zoom out a little bit and we think about what we're trying to accomplish. Almost all of us on this session, we're thinking about paid search. We're thinking about marketing in general because we want to grow the company, right? We want to generate more leads. We want to generate more sales. We want to generate more opportunity for our profits as well as for our team. And so we've developed what we call this accelerated growth model. And this is a visual that outlines that model and makes it really easy to see, okay, well, if I really want to double or triple my sales over the next 12 to 24 months, what do I need to put in place? What do I need to be thinking about? And it really comes down to three things. These three key pillars: we've got to drive leads, right? We've got to have leads coming in. We've got to maximize the conversion of those leads into customers, into repeat customers. And then we've got to optimize the ROI. Like, we've got to make sure that we're investing dollars wisely and we know where that money's going and we know that there's a return on investment associated with it. When it comes to driving leads, there's really three key mechanisms. There's organic, right? Making sure we're coming up in the non-paid listings on Google, on ChatGPT, on the various online directories. We're just organically, because of our brand, because of our SEO strategy, we're coming up. Second to that, though, is paid search, right? We want to make sure that in tandem to organic presence, we're investing dollars per click, per lead, per opportunity in a smart way. And so that's paid search. And then the third is database marketing, being strategic with, well, once we do get a lead, once we do get a customer, how do we make sure that that one-time customer turns into a repeat customer that uses us again and again? How do we make sure that the leads that come in that maybe don't do anything today, we're remaining top of mind with, so that they use us in the future when they do need to change out their air conditioning or to install that new water heater or do whatever it is. And so these are the three key strategies we tend to focus on to accelerate growth, like dialing in those three. And then from there, we've got to maximize the conversion. Because if you're generating lots of leads, but you're not converting them into book jobs, you're not converting them into repeat customers, it's going to be very hard to get a return on investment and to get the growth. And so to maximize conversion, we focus on the website, making sure that it's built to convert, that it's world class. The reputation, like, what are the reviews? What's the online sentiment about your company? Because if it's not favorable, you could be generating lots of leads. You could have a really cool website, but the customer probably won't convert. And that's going to really increase your average cost per lead. And then number three is automation. And this is a new opportunity most home service companies aren't tapping into, leveraging AI, leveraging marketing automation, so that when a lead comes in, we've got speed to lead and we can connect with them in the way they want to engage, whether that's online scheduling or whether that's two-way text messaging or whether that's online chat. If we're not leveraging AI and we're not leveraging automation in our follow-up and follow-through strategy, we're going to struggle to compete in the marketplace. And then ultimately, we've got to optimize the results. And this is where I feel a lot of frustration from plumbing, HVAC, home service companies, is that, like, they've spent the money over the years. They've spent the money with the Yodels and the Rhino Strategics and the companies of the world, and just haven't been able to put their pulse, like, okay, I'm spending money, but I don't know if it's working. I don't know if I'm getting a true return on investment. And so when it comes to optimizing the results, we need to really know, how much did we actually spend this month or this quarter? And, you know, whether that was in management fees to a company like ours or whether that's in internal team, how much was invested in online marketing? And then have a really clean tracking mechanism to say, well, then what's our average cost per lead? down to the channel. What's our cost per lead overall? What's our cost per lead for drains versus installs versus septic or whatever the services you provide are? And then most importantly, is there return on investment? Because if there's return on investment and we know that we're spending $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 per month, but we're getting that back 6, 10, 15 times ROI, then we can continue to reinvest that money in the right way. And so just zooming out for a minute, that's the big picture. And today we're going to zoom in on paid search. We're like, how do we structure the campaign? How do we make sure we're spending that money wisely? Hopefully that's helpful just to kind of zoom out for a minute and kind of look at the big picture of your marketing strategy and where this fits in. But we're going to focus really heavily on paid advertising today. And so I want to touch briefly on why paid search should even be part of your overall strategy. Because sometimes, like organic, if you're maybe focused more on, I want to get the free leads, I want to get the organic because I came up in search, or I'd rather just build my brand and not have to spend money in paid advertising. I know a lot of companies they kind of lean that way. The beauty of paid advertising is it's quick to set up. A strategy we put in place for SEO is going to take 3 to 6 to 9 months, right? Because if we change your website today, we create some new great content, we create some new multimedia, we put that on the website and we get it indexed and we build some citations and some authority, there's a gestation period before that starts to bear fruit in terms of impressions, in terms of leads, in terms of sales. Where with paid advertising, especially local service ads, Google ads, we can turn that on right away and start to get some momentum and start to get some lead flow. The other great thing about paid search is we can show up locally. We can dominate for like your city plus your service, plumber, plumbing, drain cleaning, whatever it is. It becomes much harder to compete on those things nationally. And what's really cool with paid advertising is we can make sure the word plumber or drain cleaning or water heater repair or air conditioning repair, regardless of whether they put a city modifier, we can target that person that's in the buying state, that's in your service area. And so we can really show up in more places. And it really is the key to scalability. Organic, I'm a big believer. Our company name is Plumbing and HVAC SEO, search engine optimization, search everywhere optimization. But if you really want to be able to control your destiny and you want to be able to say, okay, my goal is to generate $5 million or whatever the number is this year, then how many leads am I going to need to generate in order to make that a reality? Reverse engineer that math. And then, well, what's my average transaction value? What's my average conversion rate from a book job into a sale? We can turn that on right away and start to drive towards those goals. And paid advertising gives us that capability. When I say paid advertising, it isn't just Google ads, right? It's Google ads, it's local service ads, it's retargeting advertising. This is, in my mind, the model that we think about when we think about running paid advertising for your plumbing, HVAC, home service company. We've got paid ads, paid social, and then pay per lead and paid directories. So paid ads is like Google ads, local service ads, retargeting, which is dropping a pixel on that visitor's website and making sure you're coming up in the advertisements online while they're in that buying phase. Paid social is more like running Facebook ads, YouTube ads, TikTok ads. And then we all know and probably hate the pay per lead directories like Thumbtack, Nextdoor, Angie, but there's a place for those. And I think if you've got the right marketing automation strategy in place, you can still get a great return on investment from those lead sources as well, assuming like you're not hitting your lead targets that you're after. But the question often becomes, all right, I know these are all the paid advertising channels available to me. What should I do first? What order should I roll these strategies out in? And so in my mind, this is the hierarchy and the kind of the order at which we deploy these strategies. First and foremost, we want a strong organic foundation, a good website that's built to convert, that talks about who you are, what you do, why somebody should choose you versus the competition, and has pages for the key services that you offer and the key markets, subtowns that you operate in. If you just do paid advertising, your average cost per lead, your average conversion, it starts to get untenable. It starts to become very expensive. And so having a good organic foundation is mission critical, not just to your marketing, but to the effectiveness of your paid advertising as well. Up from there, immediately focus would be paid advertising, which is local service ads, and Google ads. Both of these are very directional, meaning somebody has a plumbing or HVAC issue, or they're looking to install a new air conditioning, and they're looking for that right then and there. We want to make sure we're capitalizing on those people at the bottom of the funnel that have an exact need in the moment and make sure we're coming up. And so that's organic, and then that's paid advertising. I would say up from there, before you start investing in any other form of advertising for your plumbing, HVAC, home service company, there's two things you want to put in place: retargeting and automation. Retargeting is just making sure that if they got to your website because they're looking for what you do, either from a Google ad or from organic, not everybody's ready to buy right now. There's a research phase in some cases. And so what we want to do is make sure that we're showing up more often for those people while they're in that buying phase. And that's what retargeting gives us the ability to do. And then we want to make sure we have automation, which is the second somebody submits a lead, whether it's a lead form on your website or they start a chat or they actually call into the office, we need to make sure that we've got automation in place so that we can follow up with those leads quickly and in the way that they want, right? And quickly in the way they want means probably sending them a text message right after they call and say, hey, sorry we missed your call, or hey, you called in, wanted to make sure that you've got your problem squared away. If you can do that well, then you're going to be able to spend more to attract the customer because you're going to be able to convert more of those leads into sales. And so organic, then paid, which is local service ads. And in today's market, I still say max out local service ads. And then the rest flows in to Google ads and pay-per-click advertising. Up from there, assuming you're fully leveraging your paid search budget, you're fully leveraging your strategies for coming up in organic search, would be pay-per-lead and paid directory services like Angie and Thumbtack, more as a supplement. Let's say the goal is 5 million and we know we need to generate 655 qualified leads in order to make that a reality. If we're not hitting that with these two strategies, then tapping into maybe a paid advertisement on Yelp, maybe a paid listing on Angie, maybe paying on a per lead basis through these other platforms starts to make sense, to make up the difference, to make up the delta. Now, before you yell at me and say those leads go to 7 contractors and nobody ever buys and it's a waste of time, well, if you're leveraging automation, you can win the speed to lead race. You can win the follow-up, follow-through race because it's not you personally or somebody in the office. And I would say at the very top of this hierarchy would be brand advertising, which in my mind is social ads like Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. There's a place for it. If you're less than $10 million per year, it's probably not the best use of your financial resources because we know in your market, there's people looking. There's people that have that immediate need. Now, when you look at the companies that maybe were bought by PE or that are doing 10 million, 20 million, $30 million per year, you'll see that they've established themselves as the go-to company in their market. And they're not doing that exclusively through paid advertising. Like they're doing that a lot through brand advertising. They've got lots of trucks that are wrapped. Maybe they invested in billboards and they're investing heavily in addition to show up and saturate the market, showing up on the Facebook feed, showing up in TikTok, showing up on YouTube ads. And so I think there's a place for it as you look to go, 8 figures, multiple 8 figures. But if you're not there yet, there's lower hanging fruit down in these advertising strategies. Give me a 1 in the chat if you're tracking along and it's helpful to kind of see what the directional path is and the order that I would recommend implementing these strategies. Mike, Brad, Nicholas, thank you guys for engaging with me. Logan, Taylor, fantastic. Okay, so let's now get into the paid search strategies and kind of some of the most important aspects of doing this well and doing this effectively. And I will point you again to the workbook. We did put together this workbook with a great checklist and very specific guidance. And you can access that by going to plumberseo.net/ppc-workbook. So first and foremost, when it comes to paid search, is local service ads. And the reason I say first is because what we've found, now working with hundreds of plumbing, HVAC, home service companies, is that the quality of the lead that you can get from local service ads is very good. Unlike Angie's and other pay-per-lead options, and local service ads comes up before the paid ads. It comes up before the organic listings. And so if you've got a $5,000 or a $10,000 budget that you can deploy into local service ads, that's likely going to have the best return on investment from paid. I still have found organic, obviously, once you're coming up in the non-paid listings, is got a much better return on investment than anything you can do. But outside of that, local service ads is where you're going to want to put as many resources as you can. And so if we go to Google right now and we search for your city plus plumber, AC repair, HVAC contractor, drain cleaning, whatever the terms are, local service ads come up at the very top. And I'm not going to do a long overview of this because I think most of you know what this is and you know how it works. At the most basic level, you get a background check through there, you get added to local service ads rotation, and then there's very specific things that you can do to ensure that you're in the 3 rotation outside of just increasing your spend, outside of just having a big budget. So obviously first you got to get set up. Type LSA in the chat here if you're doing some type of local service ads today, like you're already through the background check process and you're in the rotation. So Nicholas and Brad, you guys are doing this today. Next thing you want to do is dial in your service area, and you can set a very specific service area within local service ads. Update your profile. There's lots of little settings, pictures, descriptions that you can add, and then put your budget in. And like, this is one of the easy things you can do is open up the budget more than you're probably willing to spend, because early days, it's not going to spend out. I know some contractors that have $100,000 budget allocated because they're like, I'll take every local service ad that I can get, and they only spend like $5,000 or $6,000 of that spend. So open up the budget, obviously pay attention to it. Don't like just let it spend out. But again, prioritize the spend there versus Google ads, because your cost per lead you're going to see is a little bit less and the quality is just as good. The feedback loop of the outcomes of your jobs is one of the most important aspects of success with local service ads. So actually making sure you've got the profile set up correctly, you've got all of the right services, and then when the leads start to trickle in, Google is paying very close attention to answer percentage, and then they're waiting for somebody in your team to go in to local service ads on the back end and mark the outcome. I think this is pretty common knowledge today, but there are still a lot of contractors that just, they set the budget, they set it, they forget it, and then before they know it, they're not getting any leads for local service ads. And it's because this is something that needs to be set up correctly, but it needs to be managed. And so this is one of the things we do for our clients and we're doing local service ads management, is we're rating the outcomes of those calls and we're marketing it in the platform. And that's a huge driver of success. Google has taken away the ability to dispute the way that they did, but making sure you close that loop, making sure you have a high answer rate, shoot for a high booking rate, because that tells Google the person that was looking on local service ads got what they wanted and they got their problem solved. And if they're helping their consumer, that's a win for them because people are going to continue to use the platform. What you want to look for in local service ads is there's a tracking mechanism to tell you what your booking percentage is. If you can get that to 85% or higher at volume, you're going to open the door for Google to send you more and more of those local service ad leads. Again, I could go much deeper on this. I've got a whole hour-long presentation on local service ads, but today's about paid advertising as a whole. But I do want to hear some examples and some case studies, because I think some of you might be like, well, does it work? Are the leads good? If you've got your conversion dialed in and that you're answering the phones and then your speed to lead and then you're closing the loop on the front end, it should give you a great return on investment. And then if you're smart with how you market to that customer on the back end, it could be huge. So this is an example of one of the companies we work with, Cardinal Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Great company we've had the opportunity to work with over the years. I just pulled up their website as a visual reference there in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. I want you to see the data. So we looked over to the year 2025, and we're kind of zooming way out, looking at an entire year for this organization. They invested $330,000 in local service ads. They had 7,350 charged leads, 550,000 impressions. That's a 60% absolute impression rate, which means not only was the campaign set up well, not only did we optimize everything the way it was set up, but we were able to really tap in to as much of that lead flow as possible. Tracked revenue, $6 million, 18-time return on investment directly from local service ads during the year of 2025. So I think that's pretty cool because we do use Searchlight, so we can see the leads that came in which one's actually attributed back to revenue at 18-time return on investment. Another example here, a little smaller company, is Laconia Comfort. They're an HVAC company in Georgia. I'm just pulling up their website here as a point of reference. We don't just do the local service ads, right? We're going to build a website that's built to convert. We're going to make sure it can come up organically for all the keywords. We're going to build out their brand presence and their authority in the marketplace. And then if we just zoom in on the LSA channel, $8,212 in ad spend, 132 charged leads. This is for Q1 this year, by the way. This isn't the whole year. 6,181 impressions, 62% absolute impression rate. That just means, like, when we search and LSA comes up, 62% of the time they're coming up in those top 3 results, which is kind of the key to the game, right? We want to make sure we're in that rotation. And that's based on everything else I was talking about prior. So for that $8,000 spend, they generated $65,000 in closed revenue. That's an 8-time return on investment. And then one last example here, I'll pull up on local service ads, and we're going to get into Google ads, is Jerry Branham Air Conditioning, based in Daytona Beach, Florida. Beautiful, beautiful area down there. See their website here. Just kind of scanning through it for you. And there's a whole nother conversation about how to set up the website and make sure it's built to convert, and, you know, the very specific aspects of that. But in their case, back in 2004 to 2005, we kind of quantified the change over the years. They went from 154 leads to 291 leads on local service ads. That's a 90% increase, an 83% absolute impression share, which means they're getting most of the opportunities in that market. $191,000 in estimates generated, 8-time return on investment. And so hopefully that opens your eyes to, if you're not playing the LSA game, you're missing out on some opportunity. And again, it comes down to proper setup and then proper daily ongoing management and closing the loop and passing the details back to Google. And this is something we pay very close attention to, just because we've seen it's a key driver. If you want help with your local service ads, or, you know, you want to have us kind of get in there and help you get it set up, we'd love to chat with you about that. Okay. The second key approach when it comes to paid advertising in your plumbing, HVAC, home services is Google Ads, right? And I know this is like the fundamental paid advertising that when you think about online advertising, it's pay-per-click, it's Google Ads. Most of the home service companies I talk to have done Google Ads over the years, and they feel like it was a total waste. If in your mind, you're like, yeah, I feel like I've wasted so much money on Google Ads, and it feels like it was just flushing money down the toilet. And for a variety of reasons, there's a lot of competition. The average cost per lead can get very, very high. If it's not done correctly, it's very easy to spend a lot of money and no return on investment. And so that's why I want to have Michael on with me today to kind of walk you through the big mistakes we see plumbing, HVAC, home service companies make when it comes to managing their Google Ads campaigns, and then show you some real data, some real examples of when you do this right and when you get it dialed in, you can expect a 5 to 25 time return on investment. But there's very specific nuance to the way that you structure it. The easiest explanation, and without getting into too much detail, is Google Ads comes down to relevancy and quality. And so if you can structure your campaign where when they type in drain cleaning versus plumber, you've got a different text ad, you've got a different landing page, which means you've got completely different relevancy, which means you can actually pay less per click while still being in the top results. And then you're going to get a better conversion rate on the back end. But that requires understanding plumbing, HVAC, home services, understanding the nuance, and then being willing to put the effort to actually structure and set it up correctly, which is something we pride ourselves on here at Plumbing and HVAC SEO. And one of the other really important aspects of success is not just driving it to your homepage. Like, you could have a really cool website here like Cardinal, and we want that website to be the branded page. We want that website to be the place that somebody gets to from organic search. But directionally, when somebody clicks on a Google ad or a retargeting ad, we want to eliminate the confusion, and we want to take them to a dedicated landing page that's built to convert. And so I'm just going to pull up a couple of examples of our landing pages and why we're able to get a 25 to 30% conversion on paid traffic versus sending them directly to a website. And so this is one of our landing pages as an example. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, and you can see there's a lot less going on. It's very directional. It's special offers, phone number, request service, a coupon, because most people that click on your paid ad are first-time customers, and they're trying to decide, do they call you or do they call the competition? And so making it like, here's the reason you want to contact us for service today, right? And not flooding them with information, but giving them enough about who you are, what you do, what problems you can solve for them, and then making it very directional. And the other really important thing when it comes to your landing pages is making sure that it's mobile optimized. More people are getting to your company website on their mobile phone than they're getting to it from their desktop. So making sure that they've got an easy click to call button and that it's super quick and efficient. And so I just wanted to pull up a couple of those examples, and the difference between like your website, right, which is going to be heavily about you and your branding. And, there's some very specific things you do to get it to rank, which is going to be different than the way you approach the landing page strategy that you want to put in place. And we test this extensively. And for years, we wanted to drive it to the webpage because we liked our websites so much. And we spent so much time making those websites beautiful and high converting. But there's a different strategy for converting paid traffic than there is organic traffic. And so this is just another example here, Duke's air conditioning landing page. And you don't want one landing page, right? You want to have landing pages for each of the services. So if you're doing plumbing and drain cleaning and water heaters, you want separate landing pages with separate offers that match so that you can be highly relevant, not just to Google's algorithm, but relevant to that customer's perspective. They were looking for drain cleaning. They saw a text ad that referenced drain cleaning and a special incentive in their market, and then they landed on a page that was specifically about that, specifically about what you could do for them and the special incentive to move forward with you. So hopefully that's helpful to see some of those examples. And now what I want to do is I want to get into some of the biggest mistakes that home service companies are making when it comes to their online advertising. I'm super pumped to have Michael Carney with us, our paid search strategist for the company. Mike, let's just hand the floor to you and kind of walk us through some of the biggest mistakes you see as you take over these campaigns and some of the tweaks that you make to make them sing.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, before we get into that, I wasn't actually initially planning on covering this, but I know you mentioned our ROI. We have some ROI tracking set up for a lot of our clients, and see a couple of you guys in the chat saying Google Ads is expensive, which it definitely is. It's a daunting platform if you don't know what you're doing. It can be tough. You could waste a lot of your budget, but if you do know what you're doing, it could work really well for you. So I did want to pull up our Q1 results here for the clients that we do have ROI report. So this is just for Google Ads. This recent Q1 in 2026, we had about a 7.5 time closed return on investment up to 14 time potential return. The potential includes all estimates and sold revenue as well. So you can get results similar to this, but at the same time, if you don't really have too much familiarity with Google Ads, it could be a bit of a wake-up call trying to get in the Google Ad, not really knowing what you're doing and what mistakes you might be making. I actually wanted to share my screen. I'm not going to have the actual slideshow pulled up because I'm going to go back and forth between an actual Google Ads platform and kind of show you. Google likes to hide a lot of the settings that I'm going to go into. So I just kind of want to jump back and forth and go through these mistakes and kind of show you kind of what I'm talking about in the actual account itself. So the first mistake I want to go into, this is really as soon as you launch your Google Ads account, it's very possible that you're making this first mistake. I noticed this with a lot of the accounts that we audit. Google will push you towards smart campaigns, and those campaigns are not smart whatsoever. So basically, these campaigns are just meant to get your ads running as soon as possible and get you spending, but you have no control over the smart campaigns. You can't see your search term visibility. So it'll give you like search names, but you can't actually see what terms you're showing up for and what you're spending money on. There's really no easy way to negate keywords specifically in the smart campaigns. And a lot of the time they're just, if they're not getting you a bunch of irrelevant competitor clicks and calls, it's just going to be capitalizing on your brand terms, which, maybe you do want to run some brand campaigns, but I know most of the companies we work with want to target service specific keywords, not their brand so much. So if you launch a brand new account, Google's unfortunately going to take you through, there's really no way to skip it. It's going to force you to create a campaign. So If you're looking to start an account, or maybe this happened to you in the past, go through the whole campaign setup process. And then once you get that campaign launched, just pause it immediately, just remove it immediately, and then create a new campaign from your actual campaign dashboard. So launch that initial campaign that Google forces you through, go to your campaigns, again, campaigns. And then once you get to this page, again, I just have a dummy account pulled up here to show you guys what it would look like. You're just going to click the blue plus button here and create a new campaign. And then from this page, Google's going to try to guide you through the setup process. Just make sure the whole theme I'm going to be getting into with this segment is just not really taking Google's recommendations most of the time. It's usually going to point you in the wrong direction, believe it or not. So create a campaign without guidance, and 90% of the time, you're going to want to be running search campaigns. So you can see there's a bunch of different campaigns here. Keegan's going to set up smart campaigns for you. Performance Max is an option that we'll get into. Display, again, could be used for like retargeting and whatnot. But a lot of these other campaign types, I wouldn't even bother with, especially if you're just getting started. Start with what is the best performing campaign type, which is search campaigns, and then take it from there. And then from here, you're just building your ad copy, your keywords, all of that stuff. So that's the first mistake I wanted to get into, is just the initial path that Google tries to push you down with smart campaigns and thinking that's the right move, which it's definitely not. Make sure you're running search campaigns and manually setting up your campaigns without Google kind of guiding you through the whole process. The next mistake here is using wrong match types. Google has multiple different match types. They have broad match, phrase match, exact match. And over the years, Google's been broadening out the match types more and more. So basically, phrase match now works the way broad match used to work. Exact match works like phrase match is supposed to work. So the way that we run our campaigns, we use almost in our entire strategy is exact match. I would say about 75% of the keywords we target are exact match, maybe 25% phrase match. Very rarely will test broad match keywords as well. For example, if you're targeting phrase match drain cleaning Las Vegas, even though that phrase a lot of the time won't even show up in the search term, it can be showing up for competitor terms, DIY terms, cost related terms like employment terms, stuff like that, which is just wasting your ad spend. And again, Google Ads is expensive. You could be spending up to $50 to $100 per click, depending on how competitive your market is. So really the main thing is making sure you're saving your budget and you're not wasting all of your ad spend every single month on terms that aren't going to be driving you any business. So that's really the main thing there. You could definitely still test out phrase match. I would just save it for more like long tail keywords, nothing short tail. So for example, for our HVAC companies, I noticed like AC repair and phrase match just bringing in tons of competitor terms, stuff like that. So that's like the keyword AC repair, just those two words. I would use that in exact match, but maybe a air conditioning repair near me, that's something you could test out in phrase match. But again, if you are using phrase or broad match, keep a really close eye on your search terms report. Google does show you all of the terms or most of the terms that your ads are triggering. So you're not going to see any data here because this is just a test account. But if you go to your campaigns, insights, reports, search terms, this will show all of the search terms your campaigns are triggering. And then from here, you could highlight whatever you don't want and negate that term. But I can tell you with exact match, you're not even going to really need to negate many terms. It's going to be very clean. It's just going to be all close variants of your keyword that you're targeting. So if you're targeting, let's say you're a plumbing company in Miami, for example, if you're targeting plumber near me in exact match, it won't only allow you to show up for plumber near me. It'll show close variants of that keyword, like phrase match is supposed to work. So you'll still show up for like plumbing company in Miami, plumbing company in my area, things like that. So I definitely recommend starting with exact match for sure. And then over time, like we still test broad match on occasion, but it's usually with our accounts that have tons of data. The smart bidding algorithm is already dialed in, and we're at the point where everything's working so well. We're just trying to kind of squeeze everything we can out of the account and start split testing broad match. If you do that though, I would recommend launching broad match in its own campaign so you have full control over it. It's not taking priority over your exact match and potential phrase match terms. And then one other setting I did want to mention, because it's like a newer feature that Google's offering, is AI Max, which is kind of like even worse than broad match keywords. At least when we've tested it out, it worked really poorly. It just brought in a lot of irrelevant competitive clicks. And I know maybe you guys have some experience getting on calls with Google reps. They'll push new features like this all the time, whether it works or doesn't work. They don't care. They're still going to tell you to enable it. So that's just their job. So Don't use AI Max. Again, maybe if you do want to test it out, if you have a seasoned account, go for it, but keep a really close eye on it. But especially if you're new to Google Ads and launching a new account, stay away from AI Max. Just launch exact match keywords and search campaigns. That's going to be your best bet when you're getting started. And then moving on here. So mistake 3, Josh kind of covered this one already, but I still see tons of advertisers sending their ads to their website rather than service specific landing pages. I did just want to add there though, if you do have a website that you're sending traffic to, at least make sure it's going to a service specific page. So if you're running a drain cleaning ad, for example, don't send that ad to your homepage, at least send it to your drain cleaning service page, because that'll at least let Google know that that ad is relevant. There's drain cleaning content on that page. You're hopefully have drain cleaning headlines in your ad copy. You're targeting drain cleaning keywords, so it has that message match from the landing page to the ad copy to the keywords you're targeting. That'll increase your ad quality, and higher ad quality leads to lower cost per clicks. I know there's some debate about that, but that comes from Google's support page directly. Higher ad quality leads to lower cost per clicks, which will also help with your ad visibility, your impression shares, your click-through rates, all that stuff. So that's the second point of this. So if you have service-specific landing pages, that's recommended. If you don't, at least send it to a service-specific page on your website. And then the second portion of this is your ad copy that you're writing. So I do see the accounts that I audit, I see the ad copy a lot of the time is very weak. So obviously, it's not like Facebook ads where you could test different graphics and stuff like that. So we need to take advantage of the assets that we do have, which is all of the different headline and description slots and your ad extensions and all of that stuff, which I'm going to get into. I'm just going to pull up an example ad here and kind of show you like a way to write your ad copy. So I'll pull up all our responsive search ads, and I'm just going to open up an example here. So you're going to have 15 headline slots, and you're going to want to use all of those 100%. You don't want to be lazy here and only utilize the 3 required headline slots, because what this is doing, if you give Google 15 headline slots, it's allowing Google to kind of, when Google Smart Bidding is kicking in, it's testing these different headline combinations, these different description combinations. And once it finds a good combination that's working well, converting well, it'll start prioritizing that combination. So it's going to help your long-term conversion rates, click-through rates, all of that stuff if you're giving Google more content to work with. So try to write strong ad copy and make sure the ad copy is also relevant to the keywords that you're targeting. These are the keywords in this ad group, and Google wants to see that you're actually targeting these keywords in your headlines in some capacity. So this will lead to higher ad quality. You can see Google gives a little ad strength score at the top. Doesn't always mean that the ad's going to perform well if you get a good or excellent ad strength, but it definitely helps. What I like to do is I like to kind of give one ad, giving Google everything at once, all the headline slots build up, not pinning any headlines or anything, which I'll get into that in a sec too. And then I split test another ad where I'll pin some headlines, which Google technically doesn't like, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to perform better. So Google Ads is all about testing things, which is what I'm going to get into in just a sec here. But before I get into that, a couple more things about the ad copy. So you may or may not know about this. It might be a little bit more of like an advanced tactic. For your ad copy, you can see here, I have these little like squiggly brackets that have this weird text in it. So you can see this one has location city. These are called location insertions and keyword insertions. And I'll actually pin one here in the headline, slot 1, so you can see what it would look like. These are just different headline slots that'll allow you to improve your click-through rates and whatnot. So for the city insertion, for example, this will take whatever city the user is searching from, and it will dynamically swap the city out from where they're located. So as you can see here, we have number 1 location insertion plumbing company. So if I look at the ad example up here, it's going to take whatever city they're searching from. So number 1 Yukon plumbing company is going to take whatever city and put that in the headline. So that's something that could help increase your click-through rates and maybe make your ad stand out a little bit more. And then for the keyword insertion, what that does is it takes the actual search query that the user put into the Google search bar, and it uses that as your headline as well. So again, your headline is going to be 100% relevant to what they're searching. So if someone types whole house repiping, that's going to be the headline that it's showing. If someone types whole home repipe service, that's what's going to show up. Repiping experts, that's going to show up in the headline. So what I like to do in my split tests, I'll back up a second here. I'll go back to this last page. I usually set up 2 different responsive search ads, which are just those ad types that I was just showing. That's what a responsive search ad looks like. Then I'll set up one ad with no pinned headlines, and then I'll duplicate that ad and just make one small change. I'll pin the keyword insertion in the first headline slot, for example. And then I will run that for 30, 60, 90 days to analyze the data over that period. Once we get enough data, see which ad is actually performing better, pause the underperforming ad, duplicate the winning ad, and then make another small change to the new ad to split test further. And that's just a continuous process I would suggest going through. And you could do that split testing for landing pages too. So again, even though landing pages is best practice, that doesn't mean that it's always going to perform better than your website. I have seen that websites sometimes perform better than landing pages for certain accounts. So that's also something that we like to split test as well. So if you're unsure, launch one ad that is identical to the other ad copy wise and make the one small change is one ad's going to a landing page, one ad's going to a website, let the data speak for itself, and then just move forward with whatever ad is working better. So I think that's pretty much everything for this point. There's one more quick thing regarding split testing here I have in my notes that I didn't want to forget. So this is another kind of like hidden setting when you're split testing that Google is not going to show you. So if you go to your campaign settings, so you're going to pull up your campaigns, come to this page here. If you hover over a campaign, it's going to open a little gear icon, click on that. And there is a setting, if you scroll down here, that by default, it will start on, it's this ad rotation setting here. By default, it's going to be on optimize, prefer best performing ads, which sounds like what you would want. But if you're trying to run a proper split test, you want the ads to rotate indefinitely, because if we're on this optimize setting, Google is just going to take whatever ad has a higher ad strength, which again doesn't always mean it's going to perform better. And they're just going to give all the visibility, impressions, clicks, all of that to that one ad. And then that split testing ad that has a lower ad strength isn't going to get a proper amount of visibility to see enough data to see which ad is actually working well and which one isn't. So if you guys are split testing, make sure that you come here to this campaign setting here, turn off the optimize best performing ads. Make sure you do not optimize rotate indefinitely. This is just going to allow your different responsive search ads to get a balanced amount of visibility and impressions. So you can know what's working and what's not, and Google not messing that all up for you. So yeah, that was pretty much everything for that one. I'll get through these last couple ones here. So mistake 4, ignoring settings that matter. So this will be a quick one. This is similar to this setting here. Google will start you off, if you create a brand new campaign, there's a few settings that you're going to need to be aware of. So the first and most important one here is your network. So I'm sure a lot of you already know about this, but you want to make sure that you're not running your search ads on search partners or the display network. That's going to lead to a lot lower quality traffic. So again, the best performing campaigns typically tend to be the search campaigns on the search network. You don't want to show on the search partners, which is just basically like affiliate Google websites. Usually a lot of poor quality traffic comes from search partners. So we don't want that. We don't want the display network. Just stick to the search network only. So make sure these two check boxes are unchecked. And there was another quick one here regarding your location settings. So there's another location setting here. Again, a lot of you might already know about this, but by default, this setting will be selected and it allows your ads to show to people outside of your service area. Obviously, you don't want that. So you're going to want to change this one over to people in or regularly in your included locations as well. So like I mentioned earlier, Google pushes your ads in the wrong direction. There's a lot of little settings and whatnot that you just want to be aware of when you're setting up your campaigns, which is why I said earlier, it is a bit daunting. There's a lot of little things that can go wrong and cause you to burn through your ad budget. So that's why I wanted to share some of these smaller things. On the Performance Max side, earlier I mentioned the 2 main campaigns I would use is either a search campaign 90% of the time. We like to use Performance Max campaigns as supplemental campaigns. They work well for some accounts, other accounts they don't really do as well for. But if Performance Max works well for you, you could generate a lot of really low cost leads, and it allows your ads to show on all the channels that Google offers. So you can see your ad can show on YouTube, Gmail, Google Discovery, Display, all of that. So it gives you a bit more visibility, and the cost per clicks are a fraction of what you'll see on the search campaign. So it could be a good lower cost campaign option. A couple of you guys mentioned very high costs on Google. Mixing in some Performance Max campaigns could help bring down that average cost per click. So something you could test out. But if you do test out Performance Max, one setting I wanted to go over there is in your content suitability section. So on your left side here, there's going to be a tools sidebar. You're going to hover over that and go to content suitability. And basically all we're doing here is just excluding all of the apps. So your ads can't show on apps. This absolutely kills Performance Max results. So You can see there's excluded placements here. You're just going to drop down that arrow, go down here to app categories. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to do this. You have to tick through all 140 of the apps and just make sure you exclude all those for your account. So your ad's not going to be shown on any apps. That's only for Performance Max. You don't have to worry about that for search campaigns. So that's another quick setting there. And then a couple of other things I wanted to get into regarding extensions and assets. So if you're running ads and you're not already making use of your assets and your extensions, you definitely want to add as much as you can here. Because this is, again, there's only so much that you can do on Google Ads to make your ad stand out. You want to take as much real estate as possible on the page. So add everything you can here. Add your business name, your business logo, your site links, which show under your ad, call outs, structured snippets, which should kind of just show like what services you offer or where you guys are, where your service area is. Your call extension is an obvious one. This allows your ads to have a little call now button next to them rather than the user going to the landing page. They can just click call now, call you from there. But the main one I wanted to point out too is the location extension. And I've noticed this really does make a big difference in our accounts. If you have a Google Business Profile set up, you want to make sure that you're connecting it to your Google Ads account. So you might have noticed, like if you're looking on the Google Maps, you might see some of your competitors showing up in the sponsored posts on the maps, and a ton of call volume goes to the Google Maps. So if we're able to, even if you don't have a lot of reviews, you can kind of leapfrog those really strong organic profiles that have thousands of reviews. If you're running Google Ads and you're using the location extensions, you're going to show up in the sponsored section, which is above all those competitors that you might have with thousands of reviews, and get your calls from there. So this is a big one right here. You're just going to have to connect your GDP, your Google Business Profile, to your Google Ads account. And I can't really show this because I don't have like a test Google Business Profile to share with. But once you do set up your GDP and connect it here, you're going to want to go to your Google Business Profile and add your tracking number, whatever tracking number that you're using for Google Ads. If you're not using a tracking number, I would definitely suggest using one so you know where your calls are coming from. When you pull up your Google Business Profile, there's going to be the 3 dots in like the top right of your profile. You're just going to have to click that, go to your advanced settings, scroll down, and then there's going to be a Google Ads tracking number section. You just plug your tracking number in there, and then any call that you get from the location extension on the maps, the sponsored post on the maps, you'll get proper tracking for that. Because if you don't add your tracking number in there, all of those calls are going to be going to whatever organic number you have on your Google Business Profile, and you're not going to know how well your ads are actually performing. So that was a little bit of a tip there for the assets. And then the last one here, using the wrong bidding strategy. So I'm not sure what most of you guys might have been testing out in terms of bid strategy, but there's really 2 main bid strategies that I would suggest. So maximize conversions is, and the variance of max conversions. So maximize conversions is a smart bidding strategy. That's the main smart bidding strategy I would recommend. There's a couple of variations to that, like maximize conversions with a target CPA, which basically just you tell Google what cost per lead you're looking for, and Google will try to optimize for that cost per lead. That's something you kind of add down the line. So that's one max conversion strategy you could add. There's also maximize for revenue value, essentially, which if you do have revenue data getting pulled into your account, which I'm sure a lot of people probably don't because you need to set up different connections to their CRM for that and stuff, you could optimize for higher revenue campaigns. But I would say the main 2 bid strategies to focus on are just normal maximize conversions. But before you even set up maximize conversions, and kind of I want to say here, there's like maximize clicks bid strategies. I wouldn't recommend using that, like target impression share. I wouldn't recommend using that. If you start a brand new campaign or a brand new account, I would recommend utilizing the manual CPC strategy. So you can manually set how much you're willing to spend per click, and it can save you from your campaign going crazy and spending $100, $120 per click. So if you launch a brand new account, it's really important for you to get account data before you switch over to those smart bidding strategies, which are max conversions, target CPA, all of that. So before you have any of that account data, you want to make sure you're on manual CPC for at least about a month or so to get that initial data, control your cost per click before you switch over to max conversions. Because a lot of the time, if you just start a brand new account, you start your campaign to maximize conversions on a smart bidding strategy, Google doesn't know what your ideal audience is. That account history is really important. And if Google doesn't have any history and they don't know what demographic, what device is performing the best for your target specifically, then the cost per click is going to be out of control. The conversion rates are going to be low, and it's just going to burn through your budget. So this is another setting that Google hides in terms of the bid strategy. So again, I'm just going to show you guys where you would find this. So again, if you hover over the campaign and click on the little gear icon here, we're just going to change your bidding settings. So if you just open up bid settings and you click change bid strategy and look at the options that Google gives you, you'll notice that manual CPC isn't here. Like I mentioned, Google likes to hide certain settings. So you have to actually click the not recommended button down here, and that will open up the availability to actually set manual CPC strategy on your campaign. So I would recommend setting that to start. We do still see manual CPC works well. We usually, when we launch our new accounts, most of the time, we're launching on manual bidding because we could have more control over the campaigns. We could set our max cost per click. I'm just going to refresh here so it opens up the setting that I want to show you. It'll allow us to set a max bid per each keyword. So for burst pipe plumber, you can see Google actually tells you, for the first page bid, we want to bid $38, around $38. You can go and, bid a little bit above that at $40. And in this way, for this keyword, you're not spending $100 when you don't need to spend $100. You're spending around $40, which is good enough to get you showing up at the top of the page. So that's usually the best way to control your CPC, bring in some initial conversion data. Once you get like 10 to 20 conversions, then you could move over to max conversions, and Google will be optimized and learn enough at that point where your CPC should already be in check. Long-term, max conversions is the move, but for brand new accounts, before the account has any data, manual bidding is the move, and then switch over to max conversions once you get that data in. And then once you do get smart bidding factored into your campaigns, Google will already know what the target audience is. They'll raise your bids for higher converting audiences so you can kind of beat out some of your competitors. So I would say smart bidding is definitely a move in the long term. But for brand new accounts, I would recommend starting on manual to kind of save you guys some money there on your crazy CPCs you're probably seeing with brand new accounts, and kind of just have a little bit more control over your ads. I mean, overall, I would just say, don't always trust what Google's recommending. You need to take as much control over your ads as possible. And I'm sure Josh will mention it, but we do a lot of free audits for people. So if any of you guys would be interested in me auditing your account, I'd be happy to do so free of charge, offer you guys like some advice on what I'm seeing. Any recommendations, I'm sure Josh will know more about that and how to set that up. But I think that's pretty much everything for this slide. Josh, you want me to kind of go over anything else here?
Michael, that was great. I did drop the link. If you want to schedule a free audit where Michael will personally look at your campaign, you can go to plumbersco.net/schedule. That was amazing, Michael. First of all, great job. Thanks for breaking this down. I love the fact that you didn't just use the slides, but you showed visuals in the ads editor. If you got value from that, drop a 1 so Michael knows he appreciates the effort. If you have a question for Michael while he's up and like he's got ads open, feel free to drop that into the chat. Michael, I've got a few other slides there. If you can walk through, just kind of ideally, we talked about where people screw things up. Like, what is the ideal campaign structure? And just kind of cliff notes hit this for them. That way they can see what some of the best practices are and kind of how we think through this when we set up campaigns.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where you kind of want me to go here, but I would definitely say it all depends on what your budget is and what your priority services are, right? So like, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. If you have a very small budget, I would say, like, say you have like an $1,000 budget, for example, per month, you usually want to start with a very simple structure. You don't want to set up a campaign for every single service that you're offering. If you have a higher budget, you definitely want to get more segmented. If you have a very simplified budget, I would kind of just start with a smaller general campaign. Let's just say you're a plumbing company. You could start with like a plumber near me ad group, just a general plumbing ad group to get all those general terms. And then you could launch different ad groups with your priority services like water heater installations, drain cleaning, whatever that might be. But if you have a higher budget and you can get more granular, you definitely want to. So you want to set up like a general campaign with all the just general plumber near me type terms, your geo terms. And then you want to set up service specific campaigns as well for your priority services like water heaters, drains, all that. And then you could have another campaign that covers kind of maybe some of like your lower priority services that, you don't want to focus on necessarily that much, but yeah, you definitely want to get more granular if you can, so you can get more focus on those top services that are bringing you in those high tickets.
Yeah, I think most people don't have the level of expertise that you have. And like, they only think about pay-per-click in terms of like, okay, I'm going to bid on some terms, right? Or they hand it off to somebody that goes and does their magic in the back end. But this visual just kind of shows you, like, you don't want to lump it all plumbing into one big thing, right? It's like, there's going to be a campaign that would be specifically searching for your company name, and there's specific keywords for that. And then general terms are like plumber, plumber near me, plumber in my area, best plumbers, etc. But then the more specific terms, which would be somebody actually looking for that particular thing, which might be higher transaction. Like if they went and typed in tankless water heaters, you want to be targeting that in a separate ad group with a separate set of keywords. And I think it's really smart what you said, Michael, there. Like you can't do it all with the $1,000 budget, right? Like if you've got a limited budget, you're only going to be able to probably play in the general plumbing terms. If you've got more and you're looking to really maximize your lead flow and target the types of services that you want, then you can get pretty creative with how you carve this up.
Sure.
If you could on the next screen there, just like that's like kind of how you would structure it. The next screen is like how it actually breaks down inside of Google Ads.
No, this is good. So yeah, I mean, the campaign is just going to be like the high level. So it's basically like your folder where everything lives under. So the way you can think about it is you want to set the name for whatever comes up, which is general plumbing. You're going to create a general plumbing campaign. And then within that general plumbing campaign, you're going to list out the different type of specific general plumbing terms you're targeting. So you might have ad groups. You can see under the left side here, we have the campaign, which is just the high level. And then we start breaking it down by actual ad groups. So we might have like a plumber near me ad group where we're targeting near me terms. You might have a geo ad group where you're targeting plumber in Miami. You might have an emergency repair ad group where you're targeting emergency plumber near me. So you do want to get more segmented with your ad groups. So the ad groups are more like the different services you're targeting. So let's say you're launching a geo campaign, like I see here, for example, you would want to create different ad groups for each location that you're targeting. So if you're targeting like Miami and Doral and all the different sub-cities around Miami, you want to have those in their own different ad groups. And then it kind of just goes like down the funnel from there. So you have the campaign, then you have the ad groups, which are kind of like the geos or the services. And then you get to the keyword level, which you'll see here where this arrow is pointing. Then all the keywords are going to be related to the actual ad group as well. And then you're going to have all of those responsive search ads, all those with all the ad copy and all that stuff that I was showing earlier. Every ad group, you're going to have specific responsive search ads for. If you have a drain cleaning ad group that's targeting drain cleaning keywords, the responsive search ads in that ad group, you want it to be all related to drain cleaning. You want it to be going to a drain cleaning page if possible. You want it to have headlines about drain cleaning, descriptions about drain cleaning. That way, Google's all about relevance. So if they see, okay, this person's targeting drain cleaning keywords, they have drain cleaning ad copy, they have a drain cleaning page, they're going to bump up your ad quality, your ad relevance, which is going to help you rank higher. It's going to bring down your cost per click. It's going to help your ad perform better. And you're going to be able to outrank all of those other competitors who aren't doing this stuff because Google's going to give priority to your ad. Then we got the responsive search ads here. So yeah, just
I think that was good just to kind of see. I know this is on the outdated interface, but this is just visually kind of how you structure it, how you break it down. Alicia has a question. She's asking, is there a way to see leads from Google Ads campaign are coming from the app Maps ad placement?
Yeah, so it's going to be hard for me to show exactly since this is just a test account, but it'll all show in that same page I was showing before. I don't want to pull up an actual account here, but if you do have your location extension set up, all you're going to do is go to assets. You're going to go over your location. And then once you add your GBP here, your Google Business Profile, it's going to have like a little where it says nothing matches your filters. It's going to show your location. And you can see there's columns here with the different metrics. So that's where all of the metrics are going to show. So you could obviously add columns here. You would add a column for conversions specifically. And it will show how many clicks came through your Google Maps sponsored post, how many conversions came from there. So conversions aren't flowing through for whatever reason. If you're having some issues with your conversion tracking, you could simply just add the phone calls, which will maybe filter in some calls that might not have been tracked as a conversion, depending on how your conversion actions are set up. So you could add phone calls there. So that's how I would typically look at it.
Super good. Two questions here that I think our participants, people watching this after the fact probably have. You mentioned if you've got a small budget, like 1,000, what do you find is the appropriate budget? I know it's different by market, right? Toledo, Ohio is going to be much different than Los Angeles, but what would be like a minimum viable budget to really be effective in a plumbing or HVAC campaign?
Yeah, so I honestly, I would say $1,000 a month is bare minimum. But if we launch with $1,000 a month budget, just don't expect like we're going to have a super granular 10 campaign approach. It's going to be very simple. Like we want to make sure, like if I was setting up an account with an $1,000 budget, I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to get the most out of your budget that you have. So think about it like if we have a $1,000 a day budget And if we're running only on weekdays, that comes out. So we're running 20 days a month, just all weekdays. That comes out to $50 per day budget. Google sets their budgets on a per day basis. They look at it over 30 days, but you set your daily budgets. So if you only have $50 a day to work with, and you're setting that across multiple different campaigns, let's say even if you have 2 campaigns, you're going to have a $25 a day budget for both of those campaigns, which just really isn't going to cut it. Usually the bare minimum I try to set the campaigns to is $50 a day, which is why I recommend at least an $1,000 a day budget running weekdays only, because weekdays usually you get the best performance from what we've seen. And we just recently had a new account that we launched literally this month or maybe end of March. That's on $1,000 a day. They're a plumbing company. So the way we set it up was we just had a general plumbing ad group. And then we had a couple of more ad groups for their priority services that they told us they wanted to target.
You said $1,000 per day. I just want to clarify. Are you saying
$1,000 a month minimum, $50 per day if you're running on weekdays. Sorry about that.
That's right.
So yeah, we have an account right now that we just launched at $1,000 a month, $50 a day budget. And they're already hitting strong conversion rates. So we typically shoot for at least a 20% clicks to call conversion rate. Usually the industry average is like 10 to 15%. We shoot for like 20, 30%. And usually it might take 2 to 3 months to kind of get to that point, but this account's brand new and they're already surpassing 20%. So it's definitely possible. Obviously, like you mentioned, Josh, every area is going to be different. So some areas are going to be more competitive. So if you do have a low budget, you could also try to mix in some of like those performance max campaigns too. We do have some accounts that run on super low budgets, like $500 a month, and we only run performance max for them. I wouldn't fully suggest that, but it does work for some accounts. Like I said, PMax is kind of hit or miss. So yeah, I would say $1,000 a month minimum and just keep it very simple. One campaign targeting general plumbing terms and like 2 to 3 top priority services you really want to target. Make sure you're targeting exact match keywords, because if your budget's that low, you do not want to waste any clicks. And manual bidding strategy I'd recommend as well, just to kind of keep control over your budget and your spend at that low of a monthly budget.
So that's the minimum. In terms of like when you get an account and it's like, okay, that's a healthy budget, I feel good about that to start. What would be the sweet spot for you? Like between $2,500 and $5,000 per month or more? Like what do you, in most cases, if you've got a $5,000 budget, do you feel like you can really do a lot with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, some companies, they have multiple industries. So it depends. Like if we're just talking about one industry specifically,
just or just HVAC,
I would say 2,500 to 5,000 a month is definitely a good sweet spot. Like even 2,000 for one industry. Of course, again, it depends. Some markets are more expensive, but yeah, usually for one industry, a $2,000, $2,500 a month budget is good. But yeah, the higher the budget, the better, because, you know, impression shares are an important metric, and you can miss out on a lot of impressions due to your lack of budget. So your ad, if you have a low budget, your ad might be showing more at like the bottom of the first page or the second page, which obviously at that point, like if someone's scrolling all the way to the bottom of the page, they've already seen so many sponsored posts, so many organic listings and whatnot. So your chances of converting bottom of the page is usually not as great as at the top of the page. So obviously the higher the budget, the better you're going to be able to rank on the page, which is going to help. And then the more granular you can get with your campaigns too. So you don't have to lump those general terms in with your service related terms, because that's not always the best strategy. We only do it when we have no other choice, depending on the budget. Like I mentioned earlier, having a more segmented structure, having a plumbing and re campaign, having a water heater campaign and drain campaign, it allows you to get the appropriate spend you're looking for on each service. Yeah, you could definitely see better results that way for sure. So yeah, 2,500 to 5,000 is definitely a good range for each industry, I would say.
And I think you made some really important points about you can't do it all on a small budget, right? And like the more budget you have, the more aggressively you can play. The other really important questions outside of that was conversion tracking. I see so many home service companies that they set up the campaigns, they put a $5,000 budget, but then they're not doing the conversion tracking properly. How does that impact performance and the ability to track the ROI and everything else?
Yeah, so of course for visibility, it's everything. So you're not going to be able to see what's working. You have no idea if your ads are working if you don't have proper conversion tracking in place. But also for the campaigns to actually learn, like Google needs that conversion data. So Google is optimizing if you're on a manual bid strategy or maximize conversion bid strategy, any sort of smart bidding strategy, it's going to be using those conversions to optimize your campaign. So if you could be getting called, getting conversions, but if they're not feeding into Google ads properly, Google is going to be blind still. They're not going to know what's working, what's not working. Google smart bidding can't really come into play there. So Yeah, I mean, it might be a little confusing at first. Like, you definitely want to make sure you're setting up a couple of different conversion actions. Like, you want to make sure that you're tracking, obviously, the calls on your website specifically. So the way Google works, Google uses a Google forwarding number to track, and that's basically a swapping number. So if you're running ads to your website, for example, you're going to want to set up a website call conversion. In that conversion action you set up, you're going to use your website number as the number that Google looks for to swap with their Google forwarding number. And then essentially what Google's going to do is it's going to swap their number. And so all the tracking comes into the Google side of things. And then it forwards the call back to your business line or your call rail tracking line or whatever you're using. So you get the call, you get the attribution on call rail or whatever call recording you're using. But also Google Ads is able to track the conversion. So Google knows what's working, what's not working. So you're going to want to set up that. When you set up call extensions, Google actually, I think, still automatically creates a call from ads or a call extension conversion action for you. This is usually a completely different conversion action, but as soon as you set this up, Google should kind of set up the conversion action for you. I can show you what some of these look like. If you're tracking form fills, you want to make sure that you have like the right triggers in place. So like when someone submits a form, the way we usually set it up is it leads to a thank you page, and then the conversion triggers whenever someone lands on that thank you page. And we use landing pages typically. So the only way someone's finding that thank you page is if they submit a form from the Google Ads. It might get a little tricky if you're using a website where organic traffic is coming through. But these are the main ones. There's one missing here, which I'll get into. But the phone call from the website, you want to make sure that Google's able to identify the number on your landing page or website. The Google forwarding number just swaps with that number and then forwards to your tracking number or your business line. So this is kind of what I was just referring to when you set up the conversion action. There's going to be a destination number, which is the number that the Google forwarding number forwards to. But the display number is the number that you want to put on that's showing like the static number on your website or your landing page. This is what Google's going to look to swap with. And that's like the main conversion action there is the website calls. The call from ads conversion action here is just referring to that call extension, the one that shows up next to your ad without needing to go to the landing page. And then also the form fill here. So these just trigger whenever someone lands on a thank you page. And personally, we use Google Tag Manager to set up all those triggers and everything. So like whenever you set up a conversion action in Google Ads, you're basically just going to have to sync it up with your Google Tag Manager account. If you're not familiar with that, it might be confusing at first, but really all you're doing is Google will give you some tag setups here, and they kind of made it a little bit tricky now, but Google Tag Manager will be asking you for your account ID and your conversion label as well, which can be found. It's a little crazy now that they're trying to move away from Tag Manager, I think, but that's all Google's going to be asking for. Tag Manager is going to be asking for is your ID, which is this number right here, AW- whatever your ID is, and then your label. So just make sure you're syncing everything up with Google Tag Manager because that's where you set up all the triggers and all of that. So whenever someone lands on a thank you page, for example, that sends that data back to Google Ads and the conversions tracking. So yeah, conversion tracking is everything for obviously visibility, but also to help the campaigns learn and optimize over time.
Michael, this has been awesome. Thanks for unpacking this for us. Guys, if you have follow-up questions, post them into the chat here. Michael, great work. Thanks for breaking that down. I just want to get into a couple of case studies on this, and then we'll get you guys back to your day. I think the two things we really want to emphasize on this session, first of all, is that pay-per-click and paid advertising can work, right? It can produce a tangible, measurable return on investment when it's done correctly. The second thing I want to emphasize is that there's a right way and a wrong way, right? You could do this the wrong way and just put some money and bid on some terms, and or your provider could do that, and you could waste a lot of money. But when you do it right, there's a lot of moving parts, right? To set up the landing page, to set up the ad groups, to set up the conversion tracking correctly, and then do the ongoing optimization, which we didn't even talk about today. To do it right, there's a lot of moving parts, right? You want to make sure that you're finding a partner that can do that for you and that can actually generate the outcomes that you're after. And so that's why I wanted to have Michael on, so you could see some of the nuance that really goes into doing this well. One of our clients is Cardinal Home Services in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and we track the numbers of their overall marketing very closely. And you'll find it, the third pillar, right, is maximize ROI. Really, you have to know the numbers. You have to track the metrics. And so they're spending about $12,000 a month with us. That's management fees plus ad spend. We track about 963 leads per month. So if you divide that out, it's about $12.82 per lead. And this is coming from a variety of places, right? Some of it's coming directly from organic because we've got them ranked organically really well. 224 coming directly from paid search. So that's the attributed Google ads. And then 387 from Google Maps and 102 from web forms. If we drill down just on the Google ads component of this, that's 9,000 went to Google ads, 220 leads attributed from that particular source. That's an average of $40 per lead, which we're going to talk about some of the metrics and some kind of what the average is and what you can expect. This is a really well-managed campaign, and so we're able to get that average cost per lead down. I asked Michael to look at their data year over year and kind of zoom out a little bit and see what the true data tells us. And we can see here, last year, 2025, Q1, they generated 975 leads, which was great. Forward to this year, right, we had a little more money to spend. We had a little more optimization time underneath our belt. That quarter, this Q1 2026, 2,083 leads. And some of the key metrics that make that work, 35% click-to-call ratio, really dialed in landing page strategy, really great relevancy, which we talked about in depth, an 8.77% click-through rate, which means our text ads really well match what the person was typing, and a strong brand. They're a recognized brand in their market. They had a 28 times closed and sold ROI and a 44-time actual potential ROI. Michael, I know you've worked with this client for quite some time and you're actively involved in this campaign. Anything you want to add in terms of campaign structure or how we're able to generate that type of result?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they've been with us for a long time. And so I think that's the thing with Google Ads too. It's a little, you got to be patient with it. I know it's like hard to hear sometimes, but like if we're launching a brand new account with no historical data, like Google Ads is one of those things. Obviously, there's a much quicker turnaround time than something like SEO, for example, but there's still going to be a learning phase, not just for Google's algorithm, but also for the PPC specialist that's managing the account. Because we're trying to look at that data, see what's working well, what's not working well, reallocate budget to what's doing well, remove whatever isn't working well. And that's just an ongoing process. Like I mentioned earlier with the split testing, continuously split testing and trying to find better performing ads over time. So things are going to continuously ramping up. If you launch a brand new account first month, you could get really good performance, but a lot of the time that first month is you got to get that data and you got to start getting that learning phase going. And then usually the second, third month, we'll continue to see more and more results. But we've been working with Cardinal for years and years and years. And they, like you mentioned, Josh, their results are getting better regardless, but they have been so happy with the results that they've continued to have a steady scaling approach where they're adding more and more budget. So yeah, it's just a matter of giving it some more time, allowing Google Ads to kind of get that data and the Google algorithm to optimize, but also allow the specialist who's managing your account to kind of read that data and make the appropriate adjustments. As far as their campaign structure, they have a very large budget at this point, I think close to like $20,000 a month. So they have a very granular structure, which works really well because we could split up the campaigns for different services, have a better idea of what services are working, what aren't, shift budgets to different campaigns that are getting them higher conversion rates. So yeah, they have a very granular structure with tons of data at this point. So yeah, things are working really well for that account.
Hopefully you're walking away from today's session with some great insights and takeaways. The last thing I want to talk about is KPIs. And kind of what you should be looking for, what you should be shooting for, and what you can expect in terms of average cost per lead and return on investment from your campaigns. And this comes down to what Michael was showing you earlier is you can't just spend the money and let it fly. You got to spend the money, you got to put the conversion tracking in place, and then you got to look at those numbers and you got to adjust and pivot based on what's working. At a minimum, we need to know how much are we spending in these ads, what's our average cost per click, and then what's our average cost per lead, which is a combination of calls tracks, web forms submitted, in some cases, live chats or online booking estimate requests, depending upon how you've structured that in your campaign. And we're giving you some benchmark data here. Plumbing leads from paid search, 150 to 175, water heaters, 300 to 350, drain cleaning between 150 to 200, and then HVAC, 200 to 300. We try and beat these numbers internally, but we do like for everyone to know realistically, you're not getting $5 leads from pay-per-click in today's market, right? There's too much competition. The average cost per click is high. That's why you have to approach this with precision, right? Because if you do it well, if you don't do it well, these numbers can balloon to some ridiculous numbers. And a lot of this data is benchmarked through House Call Pro. Through Searchlight. Searchlight pulls in data from actual contractors inside the Service Titan account, inside the Household Pro account, I believe also Field Edge. And these are the real numbers based on thousands of contractors that they have access to data for. And we've added this link inside your digital workbook. So if you really want to drill down and see, like, what can I expect? What are the average spends? What are the typical ROI? This is across Searchlight's data. Our goal as an organization is to be the gold standard, right? And so we're always looking to beat these numbers, but Nick just dropped a link to that in the chat as well. Make sure you're tracking this stuff and you're reverse engineering and you're really knowing that there's an ROI, because when there is, then you can confidently say, okay, let's increase the spend. Let's increase the lead volume as the company continues to grow and continues to expand. Another really cool example of this is Fairham Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Quarter to quarter, Q4 versus Q1. Obviously, the budget increased a little bit, but 350 leads in Q4 from paid search, 655 in Q1, 13-time potential ROI, 374,000 in revenue generated. When done correctly and when structured correctly, paid search can be really effective, but it should just be a piece of your overall strategy, right? It should be a piece of the how are we driving leads, how are we converting leads, and how are we optimizing the results as the company continues to grow and scale. Hopefully you're walking away with some good ideas, some good takeaways. I would really encourage you to dive into the workbook, go through this checklist. You'll find some really interesting things with your campaigns, but without trained eye, you know, this is just kind of, for some of us, it's Chinese. I'm glad you gave me this checklist, Josh, but I really need someone that can build this out, that can look at our campaign and start to get that return on investment. And so if that's you, what I would encourage you to do is click on the link at the bottom where it says schedule. There's a link down here at the very end that we're offering you a free Leadflow acceleration session. What that means is we're going to pull up your website. We're going to pull up your paid search campaign. If you want, Michael will personally look at your account. We'll actually have to get access to your campaign. And so let us know, hey, I want him to actually look at our true data, and then we'll do a full audit and show you, hey, here's where it's good. Here's where there's room for improvement. And if it makes sense, we'll walk you through what it would look like for our organization to take that over for you to get better results. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat. But if you'd like to take us up on that opportunity, you can go to plumberseo.net/schedule. Again, there are agencies that charge between $500 to $2,000 for these types of audits. We're doing it completely free of charge. And it's not like we plug it into some automatic report. Our team's going to invest time and energy to look at the data and be able to provide you with meaningful insights. And that's kind of our thank you for investing the time that you have with us today. So if you want to take us up on that, plumberseo.net/schedule. And without further ado, I will say thank you for your time. And thank you, Mike, for breaking this down for us and really walking us through how to structure it.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help. Thank you, everyone who's here listening.
All right, everybody, have an amazing afternoon, and we'll talk to you again real soon.